Let me show you how cacao seeds become chocolate. So just give it a little cut all the way around just to release the inside. So this is what the seeds look like on the inside, covered in a white pulp, which helps to protect and to feed the seed. I'm just going to try a little bit of the pulp off one of the seeds. I'm not going to bite into the bean because I don't want the bitterness of it, but so it's really quite citrusy. So it's got a kind of mango-y taste, but also lychee. I don't know if you've ever eaten lychee. I don't like lychee. It's not too bitter, but it has got a little bit of a citrusy, zesty flavour. So yeah, it's all right. I'm just removing the seeds from the placenta. I'm going to pop them into a bowl that has holes in the bottom and place inside another bowl just to capture all of the liquid that comes off, also known as the sweatings. As the enzymes break down the pulp on the outside of this, it will create heat, which then kills the seed and helps it develop into a chocolatey flavour. So the pulp is essential. Just cover it over with the towel just to make sure it doesn't dry out too quickly, and then I'm going to pop it into a dehydrator. It's going to be set on a low temperature, so I'm going to set this to 30 degrees. It needs to be in there for between 5 and 7 days, so I'll just keep checking it every 24 hours. So we're on the way to making chocolate. So this is after the first 24 hours. I'm just going to give it a little stir, just make sure that it's not sitting in too much of the liquid, so the liquid has dripped out into the bottom. It's important to remove some of this so you don't want it to go mouldy and stop them from rotting. This is what it looks like on the inside after a day. This is what they're like 48 hours after. So you can see a lot of the white pulp is now starting to break down. I need to keep mixing them daily to make sure that they ferment evenly and make sure they all get some oxygen around them as well. By day 3, the temperature should be reaching between 45 and 50 degrees Celsius to make sure it's fermenting correctly until to kill off the seed and start to develop that chocolatey flavour. As this is a tiny batch, it's very difficult for it to generate its own heat and get right up to that temperature. As you can see, it's well below where I need it to be for tomorrow, so I'm going to increase the temperature of the dehydrator to 50 Celsius and check it again tomorrow. We are now on day 3. Let's give them a quick temperature check. Okay, so I needed it to be about 45 to 50. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn up the dehydrator just to try and get that core temperature of the seeds up a bit. So I might just put it on about, I'll try on 55 and then I'll test the temperature in a few hours and just see if that's increased. But to me, they feel like they're fermenting. So all day today, there's been a smell in the house. It kind of smells like a sweet bread, but it's also almost like it's just been baked, but it's at that stage between being baked and toasted. So it's a really, I can't explain the smell, but yeah, it just smells very bready. I upped the temperature to see if that would help with the fermentation, and it is in the range that we need. So I'm just going to give it a little stir. The aroma coming off this is amazing. I love it. So we're on day 5. You can probably hear that they are a lot drier than they were. So they're still a bit tiny bit tacky, but yeah, they're almost there. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut into one. So as you can see on the inside, it has turned brown. It does smell chocolate as well, which I'm quite pleased about. So you can see it's a little bit wavy on the inside, which is a good sign. If it was flat or grey, it hasn't fermented very well. But I'm happy with that. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to put these onto a rack or a couple of racks. I'm going to lower the temperature of the dehydrator down to about 40. I just want them to dry out a little bit more, and then we can get them in the oven and get them roasted to turn them into cocoa nibs. So exciting times. So I've just weighed them before they went back into the dehydrator. So it came out at 217 grams, and that was from 3 cacao pods. Day 8 update. This is how they went into the oven. After 10 minutes, not much change in colour, and still smelling quite vinegary. This is after 20 minutes. There's a chocolatey smell coming through now, so that's really good. The vinegary smell is subsiding. This is after 30 minutes, so as you can see, they're quite a lot darker. And this is what they look like after 38 minutes. I hope I haven't over roasted them, but they look okay to me. We now have some nicely roasted cacao beans. They went in the oven at 125, 130 Celsius. They've been in there for about 35, 40 minutes. They need to fully cool now before I can take the shells off. We're almost there. We've got roasted beans now. Tomorrow we should have cocoa nibs ready for the chocolate. Woohoo! Day 9 update. What are these? Here I am having fun deshelling them. So although the inside is quite brittle and it does come out quite easy, the shell does stick to it quite a bit. So I was trying my best not to get any shell in there or as little as possible. I saw a few different ways of doing this. So I did see people using a rolling pin just to crack them all together, then put them in a bowl and blow off all the shells with a hairdryer. But I wanted to do it my way, so here we are. But as you can see, it's not a quick exercise. I'll probably see you in about 3 weeks when I've finished shelling these. The smell is amazing though. But after I think I've done 5, this is how much nibs you get. Woohoo! That's a lot of shells. Inside each of the beans is one of these little stems. These are the embryonic roots, known as the radicle or germ, and this is where a new cacao tree would sprout from. So here we are with the final nibs. I've just weighed the nibs. We've ended up with 160 grams. That's down from 217 with the shells on. So we lost like, what, 60, just under 60 grams? Finally, let's make some homemade chocolate. We now have 330 grams of cocoa nibs. I'm just going to put them back into the dehydrator just for about 10-15 minutes just to get them back up to temperature. I need them to be about 45 degrees Celsius. So in they go for 15 minutes. I have 320 grams of granulated sugar. I just need to grind that down just so it's a lot finer. I was going to use powdered sugar or icing sugar, but it has anti-caking agent, so I'm going to use granulated and just grind it down a bit. So that's the powdered sugar, and I've also got 200 grams of whole milk powder. The nibs are now ready to grind, so again they go into the blender. It will first turn into a powder, but then eventually, after you work it a little bit longer, the fats and the butter will start to release from the nibs, and it will eventually turn into a liquor like this. Before I put the ingredients in, I want to warm up the grinder just with a hairdryer, just so nothing seizes when it goes in. I start with the cocoa butter. I'm going to put about 2/3 of the total amount in because I want to just get it in there and just start to lubricate the grinder. Then add in the liquor, and I want that to go for about an hour before adding anything else in. So once that's been going for about an hour, I slowly start to add the sugar. So every 15 minutes or so, I add about 3 or 4 tablespoons of the powdered sugar just to start getting that incorporated. Leave it for about 15 minutes, go back and add a little bit more. Don't put it all in at once because it will seize up and yeah, it'll just ruin the chocolate. Once all the sugar's in, I then add in the final bit of cocoa butter, again just to loosen up the mix a little bit before I start to add in the milk powder. After about an hour, I then start to add in the milk powder, even slower than the sugar this time. I just put in probably 1 to 2 tablespoons every sort of 10 minutes or so. I ended up putting in the 200 grams over around about 1.5 hours. Now that all the ingredients have been incorporated, I want this to run now for probably a good 8 to 10 hours. So I'll leave it into the early hours. It was a little bit thicker than I wanted it to be, so I did add in another 30 grams of cocoa butter. I just melted that down in the dehydrator to 45 degrees, added that in, and it just really loosened up the chocolate. It's now 4 in the morning and the chocolate is done. I've tasted it. It tastes absolutely insane. This chocolate is the best I've tasted. So I'm just going to get out of the machine into a bowl and just leave that to set. I want it to rest for about at least 12 hours just to help the flavours mellow a little bit. So I'm just going to put this in straight into a bowl, and then I'm just going to cover it over with a little bit of cling film, and then I'll come back to this tomorrow. I'm going to leave it out at room temperature. I'm not going to put it in the fridge or anything, so I don't want to introduce any moisture because that'll just ruin the chocolate. So yeah, I'm just going to leave it out and then come back to it in the morning. The chocolate had about 14 hours to rest, so now I'm going to temper it. I'll do this with a double boiler or a bain-marie. Just going to get some low simmering water and then just put the bowl over the top and just get that up to temperature. I'm aiming for between 45 and 48 Celsius. I don't want to keep the chocolate on there constantly, so I'll put it on for about 20-30 seconds maximum, take it off, give it a stir, just till everything is all fully melted. It doesn't take too long, but it is important to get it up to temperature, then cool it down, and then slightly raise the temperature again. This stabilises the cocoa butter crystals in the chocolate and helps to give it a really nice glossy finish, and also that really good snap when you come to break it. We're now at the right temperature. We're just over 47 degrees. So what I'm going to do now is pour about 2/3 of the chocolate into another bowl that's just been in the fridge for about 15 minutes. Don't want it to be too cold. Don't want it to go in the freezer or introduce any more moisture. But we're going to put about 2/3 in there, and keep working it until the temperature gets down to between 27 and 28 Celsius. Once it's at the right temperature, just going to add it back in to the other chocolate, and then we want to get it back up to temperature about 29-30 Celsius, which we've now achieved. Now the fun part of trying to get this chocolate into the mould. So I'm just going to get it in, spread it out as best I can, and knock out as much of the air as possible as I can, just to make sure it's a nice, good finished bar. I then attempt to level it off with a palette knife, just so it gives it a nice, hopefully a nice finish. And the same thing with the trays. Fill them up, knock out the air, and then try and level them off. In the end, I ended up with these 8 little chocolate bars, and then of the other types of bars, I ended up with 4.5. So the total chocolate I had was 1.1, just over 1 kilogram. So that's how much we're able to make. They've been resting now for probably about half an hour-ish. I wanted to leave them a bit longer, but it's getting a bit late, and I want to show you the finished article. So let's see how it's going. Like I say, it might not be perfect because it hasn't had long enough. Now, one thing I didn't do, which I knew I had to do, was to warm these up before I put the chocolate in, and this tray. So I'm hoping it hasn't bloomed, but we'll soon find out. Are you ready for the reveal? Oh no! Okay, so it is shiny, but it has bloomed a bit because, as I say, I didn't warm the tray up before I put it in. But it is still a little bit not set, so it does need a bit longer. But oh, did you hear that? Look, listen to that snap. Oh yeah, that's some good chocolate. We have chocolate. So the little bars, they've come out a little bit shinier. So, but again, they were in a plastic one, not a silicone. So I think that may have something to do with the overall finish. But let's give it a try. Oh, yeah. This square is worth about £75. So if you want one, 75 quid plus P&P. I have to tell you that genuinely, that is one of the nicest chocolates I have tasted. Even if I made it myself, it's really good. It's really creamy, really silky. I think it's been in the grinder long enough because there's no sort of grittiness or anything inside. But it's only got 4 ingredients in it. I know exactly what's gone into it. It's just cocoa nibs, cocoa butter, powdered whole milk, and sugar. That's it. 4 simple ingredients. And a lot of blood, sweat and tears. But that is an absolutely banging piece of chocolate. So thank you for watching along. Thank you for joining me on the journey. I'm extremely pleased with the result. So that's how you make chocolate from scratch. How much did it cost me to make a kilogram of chocolate? Which is bloody lovely, by the way. It is really good. I've had quite a few people comment asking how much it cost me to make. So I'm just going to give you a quick breakdown. So initially I bought 3 cacao pods, but as you're aware, that works out not to be enough. So I ended up needing double the quantity. So I bought 6 in the end because the machine needed enough ingredients to go through to actually work the chocolate. So in the end I got 6 cacao pods. They were about £9.95 each. So that was a total of £59.70. I ended up getting some cocoa butter, again, just to loosen up the mixture. I used all of that, so that was £12.99. The whole milk powder, it was £6 for 400 grams, but I only used half of that, so that was £3. And then the last ingredient, the granulated sugar, that was £1.09, but I only used a third of that bag, so that was 36p. So in total, purely just for the ingredients, it cost me £76.05. So that works out at £76.05 per kilogram. In terms of energy usage, starting off with the dehydrator. So the dehydrator is a 400 watt machine. Let's say the heating element is on 70% of the time because it has a thermostat, so it only switches on and off as and when it needs to increase temperature. Let's say that was about 70% of the time at 26p per kilowatt hour. It was on for 8 days in the end because I left it on for that extra day. But the cost of 26p should be in the region of about £14.98. And then running the wet grinder or the melanger, that was a 200 watt, I believe it was a 200 watt machine. That was running for about a day. So that's probably about £1 worth of electricity used for that. As you can see, it's not a cheap endeavour, but the result is pretty good. I'm quite impressed with how it tastes. So there we are. That's how much it costs to make a kilogram of chocolate. Just as a little bit of a PS as well, if you were also to consider this was a small chocolatier, a small business making chocolate, they would have an office, they would have staff, they would have heating, they would have, they would have all these overheads in addition to that as well. So if you take into account how much time it takes to make chocolate from scratch, again, that's why a lot of people buy the cocoa nibs already made, so they're just starting from the cocoa nibs and they'll just grind them up and mix with the flavours. But if you're a small independent business with overheads, office rent, got to keep the lights on, the electricity on, it's a lot more per unit cost than mine.